Good morning. I'm Pauline Verzosa sitting in for Gretchen Ho. It is Thursday, the 4th of December, and we're bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Now let's get to the stories that matter today. Former DPWH Secretary Rogelio Singson has resigned as a member of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI. And the resignation is being viewed as a major setback by several legislators. Caloocan Representative Egay Erice, for instance, said the ICI is dead. Senate Pro Tempore Ping Lacson alleges that nearly 79 billion pesos has been lost to Ghost Flood Control Scheme since 2016, according to fresh DPWH data. Senator Lacson stated that 494 projects within the agency's 13,000 flood control initiatives are reported to be non-existent. And the low-pressure area east of the Philippines has entered the Philippine Area of Responsibility and has a high potential to intensify into a tropical depression. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda, Caloocan Representative Egay Erice now says the ICI is dead following the resignation of Commissioner Babe Singson, who, according to Erice, stepped down out of disappointment over Malacanang's lack of support. Here's that report.
Even as Commissioner Rogelio Babe Singson appeared on Wednesday's live stream hearings of the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, it turns out he has already resigned from his post. According to ICI Chairman Andres Reyes Jr., Singson will only remain with the commission until December 15. Although, this may still change depending on Malacanang. His resignation, Reyes said, was due to health reasons. There is still no word on who will replace him.
I would like to first announce the resignation of Secretary Babe Singson or Commissioner Singson effective December 15, 2025, but could be extended to December 31. He mentioned the very intense and stressful ICI work has taken its toll on this aging body.
Despite this, Reyes expressed confidence the ICI's work will not be affected.
We have been filing almost against everybody already. I think that's enough trust.
But that is the opposite of what House Senior Deputy Minority Leader and Caloocan 2nd District Representative Edgar Erice believes. For Erice, Singson's resignation marks the death of the ICI. Erice told Storycon he had been texting with Singson, who expressed disappointment over what he described as Malacanang's lack of support for the commission.
The ICI is dead. Yung text message niya, sabi niya sa akin, why would I risk my life and my family just to solve Malacanang's problem?
Erice added that Singson even described the ICI as a punching bag.
Sabi ko, baka lumabas dyan, parang washing machine kayo. Sabi niya, hindi lang washing machine, punching bag pa.
Recall that in a privileged speech last October, Erice was the first to reveal that an ICI member was contemplating resignation. He did not name the official at the time, but said the member had begun losing hope in the ongoing flood control scandal investigation.
Sabi niya po, that without contempt powers, we might as well just task the NBI and the Ombudsman to do the investigation. Hinihingi natin sa ating Pangulo na i-certify ito at kung kinakailangan natin mag-special session, gawin po natin ito.
Both the House and Senate have pending proposal to grant additional powers to the ICI, but Malacanang appears lukewarm to the idea. Malacanang has also yet to issue a response regarding Singson's resignation.
Now, in other news, Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson reveals that nearly 79 billion pesos may have been lost to Ghost Flood Control projects since 2016. The details in this report.
79 billion pesos. That's the estimated amount that may have been lost to imaginary or ghost flood control projects since 2016. The figure, according to Senate President Pro Tempore Ping Lacson, is based on newly submitted data from the DPWH. From the agency's 13,000 flood control projects, 494 are reportedly non-existent. Lacson says the amount is staggering, a view shared by Senate Finance Committee Chairman Win Gatchalian.
Nasa 79 billion, still huge, considering na we're talking of yung naabot ng AMLAC so far, as announced by the President, nasa mga 12 billion pa lamang yung pros and accounts. And then si Alcantara, nag-restitute ng so far 110 million plus another 200 million in 2 weeks time. Si Bernardo, I don't know, parang ang estimate ko at least 1 billion. Ang layo pa natin sa 79 billion.
Malaki, siyempre. No? 79 billion is ang laki yan. If you're talking about ang budget ng DPWH about at the height of mga 800, 900, that's 10% of DPWH budget. So malaki siya. But one ghost project is a ghost project eh. Kahit na isa lang yan, dapat hindi nangyayari yan. So hindi na maulit yan sa 2026 budget.
What's more alarming is that this figure covers only flood control projects. It does not yet include other infrastructure programs that could be also vulnerable to corruption.
Kasama substandard or ghost lang?
Ghost pa lang yan. Wala pang substandard, wala pa itong mga road projects, wala pa itong multi-purpose buildings. Flood control pa lang yan. So you can just imagine. Well, dapat magsipag yung AMLAC, yung Web of Accounts na amendment ng Anti-Money Laundering Act, dapat ma-execute or implement properly.
Lacson pointed out that the 100 million pesos returned by former DPWH District Engineer Henry Alcantara, along with another 200 million pesos he is set to return, is minimal compared to the 79 billion pesos believed to have been lost to ghost projects. This raises the larger question: what can be done about such a massive loss of public funds?
Ang isasuggest ko is for the Ombudsman to deputize not only the DOJ, but I think they should utilize even CSOs, academe, para magtulong-tulong, maghanap. Kasi talagang widespread eh. We're not talking only of Oriental Mindoro and Bulacan. We're not only talking of La Union. We're not only talking of Candaba. All over the Philippines eh.
Meanwhile, Senator Gatchalian maintains that these lapses will not happen again under the 2026 national budget.
Dito sa 2026 budget, kung makikita nyo yung committee report, merong old title tapos may revised title. Yung revised title, nandun na lahat ng mga station numbers, nandun na rin yung haba, even for irrigation projects saka farm to market roads. So kaya nakalagay na yun sa JA para number 1, malaman yung cost ng project. Number 2, malaman yung haba ng project. And at number 3, yung location ng project. So hindi na mangyayaring ghost project dahil sa batas pa lang, alam na yung location.
Lacson also emphasized that the Senate has already taken steps to prevent similar anomalies, including live streaming every period of amendments, allowing the public to see all budget revisions introduced by each senator.
Now, meanwhile, the Commission on Audits says the Office of the Vice President had fewer security personnel in 2024. COA's latest audit shows the Vice Presidential Security and Protection Group had 335 members, down from 443 in 2023 and 433 in 2022. Now, the decline comes as AFP Chief General Romeo Browner Jr. planned to replace the VP SPG, a move Vice President Sara Duterte rejected, saying she may tap private security instead. With a smaller security team, the OVP's travel expenses also dropped from 42.77 million pesos in 2023 to 34.42 million in 2024. COA earlier flagged the OVP for weak monitoring of its Magnegosyo Taday entrepreneurial program. And President Bongbong Marcos has announced an increase in the base pay of all military and uniformed personnel, or MUP. The pay hike will be implemented in 3 phases starting January 1 of 2026, 2027, and 2028. In addition, the daily subsistence allowance will increase from 150 pesos to 350 pesos starting next year. Marcos said the adjustment recognizes the critical role of the country's security forces, particularly in responding to recent calamities and emergencies nationwide.
Ang ating mga MUP ang unang sumasagot sa tawag ng tungkulin kahit kaakibat nito ang mga banta sa kanilang kaligtasan. Sa lupa, tubig o himpapawid, hindi kayo nagdadalawang isip na magsakripisyo ng inyong kaligtasan para sa kapakanan ng bawat Pilipino. Naniniwala ang administrasyong ito na ang mga nagtatanggol sa bayan ay nararapat ring protektahan ng pamahalaan. Makatarungan sahod at sapat na suporta, ito ang handog ng sambayanan sa ating mga tagapagtanggol.
And in other news, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, or PHIVOLCS, recorded minor phreatic or phreatomagmatic eruptions at Taal Volcano's main crater early Thursday morning. The eruptions occurred at 12:58 a.m. and 1:04 a.m., each lasting about 2 minutes. The activity produced plumes rising roughly 1,200 meters above the crater and drifting southwest, while the second event propelled glowing rock fragments about 300 meters above the lake. Taal Volcano remains at alert level 1, signaling low-level unrest. Now, don't go away. We will be back with more stories right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and we give you the context behind the headlines. Well, reactions continue to pour in following the resignation of ICI Commissioner Singson. DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon says Singson stepped down for personal reasons, adding that the former DPWH chief wants to focus his technical expertise on helping implement the administration's upland mitigation. Baguio Mayor Benjamin Magalong says he is deeply saddened, describing Singson as very passionate about the ICI. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Laila de Lima also expressed regret over the resignation and renewed calls to pass the bill granting additional powers to the ICI. And according to Bicol Saro Representative Terry Ridon, Singson's exit is a major setback, urging President Marcos to appoint a replacement with the same level of expertise and integrity. And now let's discuss that further with Bicol Saro Party List Representative Terry Ridon, who joins us on the program this morning. Good morning, Kong. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Pauline. Thank you for having me.
All right, Kong Terry. Well, in a statement, you said that the resignation of Secretary Singson from the ICI as commissioner is a serious setback. Tell us why and what are the implications of his departure from the commission?
Well, I think he was the one that had institutional memory, had insider access, and he had basically known all the goings on in the DPWH as a former secretary for 6 years. No? So I think he would be the one most capable to basically identify the gaps and all of the corrupt practices that had been undertaken by his former colleagues in the agency, which is why it is very important for the president to appoint his replacement, who is someone that has the same skill set, who basically can understand the goings on in the DPWH and basically can also expose all of the corrupt practices of DPWH officials and personnel.
Kong Terry, would you also say that the fact-finding work now of the ICI is vulnerable following the departure of one of its most technical members? As you mentioned, Secretary Singson has institutional knowledge. He knows the ins and outs of the DPWH.
Well, I wouldn't say vulnerable, but I think it will be dependent on who the replacement will be, because I think if you would see the composition of the ICI, you have a former justice, you have an accountant, you have a former police general there, but I think what would be sorely lacking if Mr. Singson actually leaves would be the technical experience and the technical understanding of how engineering works actually are undertaken. So I think for as long as the president appoints, for example, engineering design experts, those who can actually make a determination on whether or not engineering works are actually substandard or actually well-made, I think that would spell whether or not there will be actual continuity on the work of Secretary Singson.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you next, Congressman. Is there anyone who actually has the same level of expertise as Secretary Singson, who is capable of stepping into that role of commissioner in the ICI? I mean, realistically, who fits that profile that we're looking for?
Well, obviously, there is a bench of private sector engineers and experts that the president can tap. There are also former DPWH secretaries whom the president can also top, like former Secretary Ping De Jesus. No, I think he's someone that has the same level of integrity and competence as Secretary Singson. But of course, we leave it to the president as to who it actually will be. No, but again, the president can most definitely tap into the private sector, the bench of engineers from the private sector.
Per Congressman, kayo po ba ay nagulat din sa departure sa resignation ni Secretary Singson? Because you also have Congressman Erisa saying he already had a couple of text messages with Secretary Singson where he allegedly expressed his frustrations with the lack of powers of the ICI.
Well, of course, we would want to get these types of information from Secretary Singson himself, no? Because I think from what we had been gathering for the last 2 days, it's just his friends or contacts who they've been basically speaking his mind for him. No? So you have like Congressman Erisi and other people basically communicating his state of mind. No? But obviously he hasn't made any statements as yet as to the reason for his resignation. No? So I think we will leave it to him, out of respect to him, as to the real reasons why he is departing. But of course, you are correct that syempre talagang nakakalungkot, no, na he will be leaving at the ICI at this particular moment na talaga naman pong marami na pong mga naisasalang at mga nare-refer po mga kaso sa ombudsman.
Well, Secretary Singson did cite health reasons for his departure. But I wanted to go back to your statement, Kong Terry. You also warned about possible due process overreach in the ICI's joint referral with the DPWH against alleged congressman contractors, or yung tinatawag po nga natin na contractors. Help us understand, Congressman, why you think that's an overreach in due process.
Well, ang totoo, in any deliberative body, no, like the House Infrastructure Committee, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, I think it's a bit difficult to make referrals or make recommendations without actually speaking to particular personalities that are involved. No? So we would not do it in the House. No? Kaya it's a bit of a concern that you had like alleged congressmen contractors that had been referred by the ICI itself, together with the DPWH, without actually them being interviewed by the ICI. No? I think former Senator Bong Revilla had also complained about this fact as well, that a referral was made without him being interviewed by the ICI. I don't have a debate that the DPWH could make a direct referral to the Ombudsman without actually talking to any of them. But I think a distinction needs to be made with deliberative bodies like the ICI. Kasi syempre, supposedly, it's a fact-finding body. So if it's a fact-finding body, dapat lahat po ng panig ay nakakausap po natin. No? So I think that's something that they have to be mindful about moving forward. No? Kasi syempre, if you actually make a referral, that is, I guess, a bit short of actually accusing these persons, no? These personalities, na talagang sangkot po sila sa flood control scam, flood control corruption.
But Kong Terry, one might also ask, why is it still important for them to face the ICI if there's already evidence pointing to their alleged involvement at harapin na lang nila ito sa proper venue, which in this case could be the Ombudsman?
Well, supposedly kasi yung ICI nga, like what we had stated, deliberative bodies po ito. No? So ibig sabihin, they have to be able to look at the entire body of evidence, including giving an opportunity to those accused personalities as to whether or not they are involved. No? So, ibig sabihin, dapat yun yung maging basis of any referral by the ICI. Kasi, hindi naman po ito DPWH that they actually have the wealth of the documents and they actually can, in fact, make the call that these guys are actually involved. Or, for example, they're not the AMLC, the Anti-Money Laundering Council, na on its face, they can actually see na meron ho talagang paper trail doon sa mga documentation relating to involved personalities in the flood control corruption. The ICI was basically created to deliberate on all of these information. So, the information that had been a bit missing would be information coming from the accused personalities. No? So, kumbaga, magkakaiba ho yung mga roles at papel eh. Ito po mga opisina po na ito. And supposedly, yung ICI, talagang lahat ng panig, basically, it should have been akin to a congressional proceeding like in the House or in the Senate. Na, hindi, pagka napangalanan ka, punta ka dito, magpaliwanag ka.
But Congressman, at the same time, the ICI is clear na no member of Congress can have a direct or indirect interest in government contracts, and that's what they found with these so-called contractors. So on the part na lang po of the House, can we expect Congress to actually investigate its own members?
Ang inaantay ho natin yung mga ethics complaint, no? Kasi syempre you have like several lawmakers also making accusations against each other. No, so particularly against Congressman Garjola is being accused of being a congressman contractor by a particular congressman. No? So ang inaantay ho natin dito, any personality, any congressman, any citizen can actually file an ethics complaint against any member of Congress, and I'm quite certain the committee will have to look into it as well.
But Congressman, when it comes to this culture of contracting and itong mga congressmen contractors, and conflicts of interest, how do we tighten the gaps there? Do you agree that there needs to be tighter disclosure measures, stronger disclosure rules, stricter protocols when it comes to disclosing your business interests in the House?
Well, you have, I think you have new legislation today that the conflict of interest should not just cover the member itself, the House member itself, or the senator himself, no? But it should also include yung pong mga kamag-anak niya, asawa niya, anak niya, tatay niya, magulang niya. No? So, I think that should be an actual amendment kasi like what we had been seeing, ang sinasabi nga parang nagiging dami lang po yung ilan po sa mga contracting companies, pero ultimately it would still be a House member or a senator or legislator or a government official that are basically calling the shots, no, in a contracting firm. No? So I think that's something that we really have to look into. New legislation is actually needed for this.
Kasi ang nangyayari rin, Kong Terry, is that nagda-divest lang itong mga lawmakers, mga politiko from the business. So you can't really find them in any of the documents of the business, but they're also beneficiary owners. So yun talaga po din yung gap na kailangan ayusin. But shifting to a different topic, Kong Terry, with the ICI, you said that they should also impose stricter rules when it comes to executive sessions. Yesterday, we saw Congressman Roman Romulo asking for that executive session, citing threats to his safety, his life, and potential damage to his reputation. Was the ICI correct in granting that request?
Well, I don't want to talk about specific individuals that had asked for an executive session, but I think as a general principle, executive sessions, for example, in Congress or in the Senate are basically just limited to testimony relating to national security questions and to state secrets. No? So I think it is my hope, and I guess it's the public's hope also, that executive session should be limited to that only. No? So, kumbaga, wala naman walang threats to life or to liberty or to the safety of families or personalities. No? When we actually make testimonies, it's something that will happen whether or not you do it in the ICI, whether you do it in the Ombudsman, or whether you do it in any of the congressional hearings. No? So, I think yung ICI should a little bit be more strict on imposing executive session rules and should limit it only to, like what I stated, national security and state secrets.
Do you agree, Congressman Terry, with the sentiment of Kong Egay Erice that the ICI is dead following the resignation of Secretary Babe Singson? Or are you still optimistic that the Commission can function credibly and investigate this corruption scandal?
Well, I think it's a bit of such a very cynical view of how the ICI is, no? Kasi hindi lang naman si Secretary Singson po yung nagbubuhat nito pong commission po na ito, no? So I think you have several other members that are part of it that are basically of such integrity and competence as well, no? So I think for as long as the president is able to make a determination that you can have another commissioner who has the same skill set, tingin ko magtutuloy naman po yung trabaho dito pong ICI.
But do you agree also, Kong Terry, that the ICI needs more powers? I ask that because Congressman Laila de Lima has this feeling na it's the bill that they're proposing, the ICAIC bill, is being held back in Congress despite initial signals that it would be prioritized and fast-tracked. But now she says medyo nade-delay, parang nagde-dribble. And now it's stuck at the Appropriations Committee level. And there are only a few session days left for this year before Congress goes on break. What's happening there, Congressman? Meron bang resistance inside the House of Representatives for this bill?
I don't think there's any debate that this bill should in fact be prioritized at the level of the Senate. I think that's something that is being prioritized in the House. I don't think the Speaker ever had any indication that they would want to, like what you stated, ididribble lang po yung legislation po na ito. Kasi nga, I think it's something that has top-level commitment, no? Na kailangan po talaga that any ICI in the future should actually have, firstly, content powers, and secondly, they need to be able to have subpoena powers para this commission can actually conduct itself more credibly compared to what we have today. No? So, I think kailangan lang talaga, we just need to let legislation work the way it should. No? So, we have to be able to follow up with the Appropriations Committee kung dyan mo medyo bumabagal po yung proseso.
So it's not being held back as what some lawmakers sense, Congressman?
I don't think so. Kasi if you say na it's being held back, dapat meron po talagang outward signals that it is actually being delayed. And I'm quite certain, the credibility of the president's flood control, anti-flood control corruption push is basically dependent on having a very credible ICI and for a future ICI to actually have greater powers. No? So, if you believe in that entire principle, I think there is absolutely no reason for the Senate or for Congress to actually hold back any of these proceedings.
All right, well, we're going to leave that conversation there for now. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us this morning. That was Bicol Saro Party List Representative Terry Redon. Thanks, Kong.
Good morning. Thank you.
Now, do stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after a short break. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The low-pressure area located east of the country has entered the Philippine Area of Responsibility and has a high chance of developing into a tropical depression within the next 24 hours. And for more updates, we have Pag-asa weather specialist Glyza Esculiar. Glyza.
Good morning, Pauline. The low-pressure area has high likelihood of becoming a tropical cyclone today, and if it develops, it will be named Wilma. It is expected to affect most parts of Visayas, southern Luzon, and Mindanao area in the coming days. Meanwhile, the shear line is expected to bring cloudy skies with scattered rains and isolated thunderstorms over Catanduanes, Albay, Sorsogon, northern Samar, eastern Samar, and Samar. The northeast monsoon, on the other hand, will bring cloudy skies with rains over Cagayan Valley, Cordillera Administrative Region, Aurora, and Quezon. The northeast monsoon as well will bring partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated light rains over Metro Manila and the rest of Luzon. The rest of the country will be partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers or thunderstorms mostly in the afternoon or evening due to the localized thunderstorms. That is the latest on the weather from the Weather Forecasting Center of Pag-asa. This is Glyza Esculiar reporting.
Glyza, saan ba ngayon ang eksaktong lokasyon ng LPA at kailan ba yan inaasahang maglandfall sa ating bansa?
Ang low pressure area po na ating monitor, huli nating namataan, 705 kilometers east of eastern Visayas. At inaasahan po na ito'y makaka-apekto dito po sa eastern Visayas and Caraga at pwede rin po sa Bicol region area by Friday and Saturday.
Glyza, tama ba na mas malakas yung ulan na dala nitong inaasahang si Wilma kaysa kay Verbena?
Tinitingnan po natin ang possibility na halos similar po yung ibigay po nilang pag-ulan. Ang estimated po natin, ang pinakamalakas na pag-ulan ay 100 to 200 millimeters. Kagaya din po ito ng Verbena. Pero may mga ilang lugar din po na mga 50 to 100 millimeters ang pwedeng ibuhos. Specifically dito po sa area po ng Southern Luzon, which is Bicol Region, may Maropa and Calabarzon area, and then Visayas, and then Northern Mindanao, Caraga Region.
So kailan inaasahang lalabas ng PAR, ng PAR, itong si Wilma?
Inaasahan po na makakalabas ito ng PAR by Tuesday.
By Tuesday. So magiging maulan ang ating weekend. Pero Glyza, ngayong nasa Disyembre na tayo, ilang tropical cyclone pa ba ang inaasahang papasok sa PAR?
Kung ito'y mabuo, dahil isa o dalawang bagyo po ang inaasahan ng Climatological Division, ay isa na lang po ang maaaring mabuo at makaapekto sa ating bansa. At base rin po sa TC threat potential, from this week to next week ay wala pong kasunod itong si Wilma.
Alright, thank you very much for that update. That was Pag-asa Weather Specialist, Glyza Esculiar. Now, meanwhile, Vice President Sara Duterte's performance ratings have held steady, while that of President Bongbong Marcos have been hammered by the flood control scandal. The latest survey published by WR Numero, conducted from November 21 to 28, found that public satisfaction for the president has dropped to a new low, with only 21% saying they think he's done very well. Now, in contrast, Vice President Sara Duterte's numbers have held steady, with 43% approving of her performance. Only 23% said they did not approve, while 34% said they weren't sure. On the big story, political scientist Julio Tihanki said Marcos failed to gain political ground from exposing alleged flood control anomalies.
Apparently, after that mahiya naman kayo speech, there was some bump, but now, as we end this year of turbulent political events, there is a steep decline. The steep rise of the dissatisfaction with the performance of the president is indeed alarming.
And in other news, the Independent Commission for Infrastructure, or ICI, has recommended the filing of criminal and administrative complaints against several officials, including former Senator Bong Revilla and alleged bagman Maynard Ngu. ICI Chairperson Andres Reyes said that the testimony of former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo served as the basis for the Commission's recommendation to the Office of the Ombudsman. The recommended charges include direct or indirect bribery, corruption of public officials, plunder, and various administrative sanctions. The ICI also suggested additional case buildup against former Senate President Cheese Escudero, Makati Mayor and former Senator Nancy Binay, former Senator Grace Poe, and Senator Mark Villar.
We have been filing almost against everybody already. I think that's enough trust that we are building on for the Filipino people.
Meanwhile, House Majority Leader Representative Sandro Marcos and Davao City Representative Paulo Duterte are among the lawmakers invited to testify this week before the ICI. Right, now don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss after the break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Davao City 1st District Representative Paulo Duterte said he is open to the Independent Commission for Infrastructure's investigation into flood control projects in his own district. In a statement, Duterte stressed that he has nothing to hide. This came after ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino urged the ICI to look into 4.4 billion pesos worth of flood control contracts implemented in Davao City from 2019 to 2022. Tino, citing records from the Department of Public Works and Highways, pointed to possible irregularities, including double funding, mislocated projects, shortened implementation periods, and potential overpricing. And joining us this morning is ACT Teachers Party List Representative Antonio Tino himself. Good morning, Congressman, and thanks for joining us here on Morning Matters.
Hi, good morning. Good morning to Thank you for having me here, and morning to the
Okay.
viewers.
All right, Congressman, can we get your reaction first to the statement of Congressman Pulong Duterte saying that he has nothing to hide and he welcomes this invite by the ICI also to investigate flood control projects in his own district, dyan po sa Davao City.
Well, that's good to hear. If he welcomes the investigation, then that should make it easier. I understand that he has a schedule with the ICI sometime this week. So hopefully it will be live streamed.
Kong Tony, tell us about some of the glaring red flags you found in the first district of Davao, the anomalies in flood control contracts. What were some of the red flags that you spotted?
Yeah, we looked at not all the contracts, just some of the contracts. We didn't look at all the 51 billion worth of infrastructure projects that were supposedly downloaded to the district of Pulong
Davao City.
Duterte. We saw in 80 contracts worth 4.4 billion pesos a number of red flags. So including double funding, overlapping projects, so flood control projects in the same area, but they overlap, so that's suspicious. There were changes in location, so the authorized project is supposedly for one area, but it's reported to be in another, and the length is very much shortened. So instead of, for example, a 300-meter project, it's only 125 or 130 meters, but the payment remains the same. So that's a possible case of gross overpricing. And in at least 10 contracts, they remain incomplete or ongoing, even though they were granted as early as 2020. So why is it taking 5 years and the project remains ongoing? So that's also, we're asking the ICI to look further into these, as we call them, red flags, which may indicate irregularities.
Continue, these possible irregularities that you're citing are more focused on the contracts themselves. How were you able to obtain records from the DPWH?
Well, we asked the DPWH to provide us with the records for some of the contracts, and the information they provided was very helpful. These included area maps, so of the river. So we looked at projects along two rivers only. That's the Davao River and the Matina River. So the DPWH provided maps and showed where the contracts or the projects are supposedly located. So that was also helpful. Plus, we used data from looking at the budget documents themselves, the General Appropriations Acts for 2019 to 2022, as well as some of the websites that have been made available to the public, where you can access contracts or other information from the Sumbong sa Pangulo website to at least two other DPWH websites.
And so, Kong Tino, what is the involvement of Congressman Pulong Duterte here? Because you have him arguing that he has nothing to hide and that the DPWH is the implementing agency. Are you seeing clear ties between these projects and Congressman Pulong Duterte? Proponent po ba siya sa ilang mga proyektong yan?
Of the 80 contracts that we say have red flags, 49 of those are the result of congressional insertions. Meaning to say, they were not in the original national expenditure program that was submitted, to Congress. So they were insertions made in Congress, and at the time, these projects are in his district. And at the time, he was the congressman. He still is the congressman of that district. So, in other words, if there is a proponent, the first one to ask would be the representative of the district. It just stands to reason. And it is the ICI in one of its earlier interim reports, it's the ICI itself that identified the mode of by which the infrastructure corruption is carried out. It starts with the proponent making a congressional insertion, and then the insertion turns into a contract that is awarded through rig bidding to a favored contractor, and then the kickback is paid, and then because the kickback is paid, the project is either constructed but it is grossly overpriced or substandard, or in some cases ghost project.
But
We're not making conclusions at this point. That's why we're asking for further investigation.
Yes, exactly. And to be fair, I mean, if there's anything we also learned from the past months is meron din na yung modus of sagasa, di ba? In some districts where other congressmen put funds in those districts nang hindi alam ng congressman. But of course, that's subject to investigation and something that the ICI should continue investigating. But Congressman, tell us about the contractor Genesis 88. How closely tied are they to the Dutertes?
Yeah, the biggest recipients of the contract that we looked at is a contractor named Genesis 88. This is owned by a former presidential advisor during the time of President Duterte, and it's also the donor, a campaign donor to Vice President Sara Duterte in the 2022 election. So in short, this is owned by someone who is quite close to the Dutertes. No? So again, that's also another angle that should be looked at is how come the biggest contracts or the largest number of contracts have been awarded to someone closely identified with the Dutertes, who was even a campaign donor of the vice president.
So
of course,
continue.
the election law prohibits that.
Continue. So tell us, what are your expectations now that you've submitted your findings to the ICI? Congressman Pulong Duterte is scheduled to face the commission this week. What are some of the possible violations charges that could arise from these anomalies?
Well, we leave it to the ICI to determine if there are violations. I mean, it could be, graft and corrupt, violations of the anti-graft law, even the plunder law. I mean, but we'd rather leave that matter to the ICI itself, the determination of what exact violations, if any, have been made in the case of these projects.
Actually, the observation of many Filipinos, congressman, is parang puro sapsap pa lang yung mga nahuhuli, mga nabibigyan ng mga arrest warrants, charges. Would you consider Congressman Pulong Duterte to be a big fish?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah.
Congressman.
Well, we're talking about a Duterte. So, and okay, two things. One, the current investigations have focused on flood control projects during the current administration, which is only fair. However, the flood control corruption in flood control projects did not start under this administration, but rather during the previous administration. You can really trace when the number of flood control projects being funded increased exponentially. No, and it was during the years something like 2019. Previous to this, only a few flood control projects here and there were being funded, but by 2019 onwards, practically most districts started funding and awarding flood control contracts. So it really started during the Duterte administration. That's why we thought it important to start also looking into projects earlier during the previous administration. That's why the contracts we're talking about are from 2019 to 2022.
So, Congressman, yes, just to clarify,
we started with Davao City because it is also a fact that similar to how it's turning out based on a recent PCIJ report, that the majority leader from Ilocos Norte, Sandro Marcos, reportedly has the biggest allocations in his district, according to news reports. So during the Duterte administration, it was Pulong Duterte who had the biggest DPWH allocation. So this is why we decided to look into the flood control projects in Davao City.
Yes, Congressman. So to clarify, you did say you're just getting started because on the other side, you have the Duterte camp saying that they're being singled out. But we're going to leave that conversation there for now. Thank you for your time, ACT Teachers Party's Representative Antonio Tino. Now, in other news, former Manila ex-officio councilor Leilani Lacuna has filed criminal and administrative complaints against Mayor Isko Moreno and other officials. This is over what she calls her illegal removal as president of the Liga ng mga Barangay. Lacuna, sister of former Mayor Honey Lacuna, accused the officials of violating the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act and usurpation of authority. The office of the mayor, meanwhile, says it is waiting for the formal copy of the complaint, insisting that the election of a new Liga leadership reflects the will of barangay chairpersons. And now shifting gears to sports, the UAAP Season 88 Men's Basketball Final Four opened with a high drama as UP secured the first finals berth after escaping University of Santo Tomas. UP, holding a twice-to-beat advantage, booked its fifth straight finals appearance behind a clutch three-pointer from Terrence Fortea in the final minute. Big man Francis Noruca also returned from a knee scare to help seal the win. UP will now wait for its challenger after LaSalle stunned top seed NU, forcing a knockout game for the last final slot. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa, sitting in for Gretchen Ho. Kapatid, we are one news, all sides, all the time.